The morning sun cast long shadows across the mining camp on New Incheon. Captain Lee Dongwoo stood at the observation deck of the main building, watching his people start another day of work. 3,000 humans called this place home now. They had been here for 2 years, pulling rare metals from the ground and building a life among the stars. The planet was beautiful, but dangerous. Purple grass covered the rolling hills and strange trees with silver leaves swayed in the alien breeze. But beauty came with a price. The venom spines lived here too. Dr. Park So-min had studied these creatures since they arrived. She called them the most dangerous life form on the planet. They looked like snakes but were as thick as a human arm and twice as long. Their scales shimmered green and black, and their bite could kill any living thing in minutes. The toxin they carried was like nothing humans had seen before. "Captain," came a voice behind him. Lee Dongwoo turned to see Corporal Kim Han-sol approaching with his morning report. The young soldier looked tired. Night watch was hard work when venom spines hunted in the dark. "What's the situation, Han-sol?" Lee Dongwoo asked. 2 more venom spines near the eastern mining site. Sergeant Choi Jae-sung took care of them, but we're seeing more every week. Han-sol handed over the data pad. "Dr. Park thinks they're moving closer because of our mining operations." Lee Dongwoo nodded. This was the price of progress. Every useful planet seemed to have something that wanted to kill humans. At least venom spines were predictable. They attacked, you shot them, and you stayed alive. Simple. What wasn't simple was the message that had come in during the night. "Han-sol, tell Sergeant Choi to gather the senior staff. We have visitors coming." The young corporal's eyes widened. "Visitors? From Earth?" "No, from somewhere else." An hour later, the senior staff sat around the meeting table in the command center. Dr. Park So-min pulled up the star charts on the main screen. Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun studied the readings from their deep space sensors. Sergeant Choi Jae-sung cleaned his rifle while he listened. He always cleaned his rifle when he was thinking. "They call themselves the Keth Coalition," Lee Dongwoo began. "Their ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our system 3 hours ago." "They're big ships, military ships, and how big?" Oh Min-jun asked. "Each one is larger than our entire colony ship was." The room went quiet. Dr. Park looked up from her data pad. "Have they tried to communicate?" "Yes, that's the problem." Lee Dongwoo activated the holographic display. A massive creature appeared in the center of the table. It stood on 2 legs like a human. But that's where the similarity ended. The being was covered in thick scales that looked like armor. Its head was long and narrow, with eyes that glowed red in the recording. When it spoke, its voice was deep and rumbling. "I am War Commander Vextar of the Keth Coalition. You humans occupy territory that belongs to the Keth. You will leave this system within 1 planetary rotation, or we will remove you." The hologram ended. Dr. Park stared at the space where the alien had been. Well, that was direct. "Too direct," Sergeant Choi said, setting down his rifle. "No negotiation. No discussion. Just leave or die. What do we know about them?" Lee Dongwoo asked Dr. Park. She pulled up new information on her screen. "Not much. Our databases have some records from deep space traders. The Keth are a warrior culture. They believe strength is the only thing that matters. They've conquered dozens of star systems over the past century. And they think we're weak," Oh Min-jun said. "They think all mammals are weak," Dr. Park corrected. "The Keth evolved from reptiles. Cold blood, scales, predator instincts. They see warm-blooded creatures as inferior." Lee Dongwoo stood and walked to the window. Outside, human workers continued their jobs. They had no idea that war might be coming. "How long until they arrive?" 6 hours, Oh Min-jun answered. "Maybe 7. That's not enough time to evacuate." "We couldn't evacuate anyway," Sergeant Choi pointed out. "Our transport ships are designed for cargo, not emergency evacuation. It would take weeks to get everyone off planet." Lee Dongwoo made his decision. "Then we prepare for contact. Dr. Park, I want you to set up a communication system. Maybe we can talk our way out of this." "And if we can't?" Han-sol asked. "Then we fight." The Keth ships arrived exactly when Oh Min-jun predicted they would. 3 massive vessels, each one dark gray and covered with weapon ports. They settled into orbit around New Incheon like hungry predators. Dr. Park had set up the communication array in the main plaza. The entire senior staff stood behind her as she activated the system. The image of War Commander Vextar appeared again, but this time it wasn't a recording. "Humans," the alien's voice boomed across the plaza. "You are still here. War Commander Vextar, Dr. Park began using her most diplomatic voice. I am Dr. Park So-min, representing the human colony on New Incheon. We would like to discuss the territorial claims you mentioned. The alien's red eyes seemed to glow brighter. There is nothing to discuss. This system contains resources that the Keth require. You will leave. With respect, War Commander, we have established legal claim to this system under galactic law. Our people have worked here for 2 years. We have built homes, families, galactic law. Vextar's voice carried something that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like a growl. Galactic law is made by the strong to control the weak. The Keth are strong, humans are weak. Therefore, this world belongs to the Keth. Dr. Park tried again. Perhaps we could share the system. The planet is large enough for both our peoples. The Keth do not share with inferior species. That's when everything went wrong. A group of human miners had been working in the hills above the plaza. They were heading back to the colony when the Keth ships arrived. Sergeant Choi had sent word for them to stay away from the meeting, but the message never reached them. The miners came down the hill just as War Commander Vextar was explaining why humans were inferior. The alien spotted them immediately. Those humans approach with tools, Vextar announced. The Keth interpret this as a hostile act. No, Dr. Park shouted. They're just workers returning from their jobs. They mean no harm. But 3 smaller Keth ships had already launched from the main vessels. They swept down toward the miners with weapons charging. Sergeant Choi grabbed his rifle. All units, protect the civilians. What happened next lasted only minutes, but it changed everything. The Keth ships fired energy weapons at the miners. The humans scattered, running for cover among the rocks and strange trees. Some of the security team, led by Corporal Hansol, rushed toward the hills to help. But the hills of New Incheon had their own dangers. The weapons fire and running humans disturbed a nest of venom spines. The creatures came out of their hiding places angry and ready to attack. In the chaos that followed, both humans and Keth found themselves fighting the same enemy. Hansol watched in horror as the creatures struck. One venom spine bit Sergeant Choi in the leg as he tried to help a wounded miner. The sergeant kept fighting for 30 seconds before the toxin dropped him. 2 Keth warriors who had landed to demonstrate their superiority suffered the same fate when venom spines attacked their position. The aliens had energy shields and advanced armor, but none of it mattered. The venom spine toxin worked just as fast on Keth as it did on humans. When the chaos ended, 5 humans were dead. 3 Keth warriors were also dead. The venom spines had retreated back to their hiding places, leaving both sides to stare at each other across the purple grass. War Commander Vextar's image flickered back to life on the communication screen. His red eyes were no longer glowing. They were dark and cold. The planet itself rejects your presence, he announced. Even the local creatures know that humans do not belong here. We will cleanse this world of your contamination. The image cut out. In orbit above them, the Keth ships began to power their weapons. Lee Dong-woo looked around at his people. Dr. Park was crying for the dead miners. Oh Min-jun was already calculating how long their shields would last against orbital bombardment. Corporal Hansol was kneeling beside Sergeant Choi's body, his young face hard with grief and anger. All personnel to emergency positions, Lee Dong-woo ordered. Seal the blast doors. Activate all defensive systems. He knew it wouldn't be enough. The Keth ships could destroy the entire colony from orbit, and there was nothing the humans could do to stop them. But as he watched his people prepare for their last stand, Lee Dong-woo felt something unexpected. Not fear, but pride. His people weren't running. They weren't begging. They were getting ready to fight, even though they couldn't win. Maybe the Keth were wrong about humans being weak. The first energy blast from orbit struck the eastern mining complex exactly 1 hour later. The war had begun. The underground bunkers of New Incheon shook with each energy blast from above. Captain Lee Dong-woo sat in the emergency command center, deep beneath the colony's main building. The lights flickered every time the Keth ships fired their weapons. Status report, he called out to his remaining staff. Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun looked up from his control panel. Eastern mining complex is gone. Western residential area took heavy damage. We've lost 60% of our surface installations. Dr. Park So-min worked at her medical station, treating wounded colonists who had made it to the bunkers. 43 injured, 12 dead, she reported without looking up from her patient. Most of the casualties are from the initial attack on the miners. Corporal Kim Hansel stood near the communications array, listening to reports from the other human colonies across the star systems. His face was grim. "Captain, we're getting distress calls from 7 other worlds. The Keth are attacking everywhere." Lee Dongwu closed his eyes for a moment. This wasn't just about New Incheon anymore. The Keth had declared war on all of humanity. Any word from Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun's fleet? Last transmission was 6 hours ago. The Admiral is gathering all available ships, but... Hansol paused. "Sir, the Keth fleet is massive. We're looking at hundreds of warships against maybe 30 human vessels." The bunker shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere in the medical section, a child started crying. "How long can our shields hold?" Lee Dongwu asked Oh Min-jun. "At this rate, maybe 18 hours. The Keth aren't trying to destroy us quickly. They're wearing us down slowly." Dr. Park finished bandaging her patient and moved to the next wounded colonist. "It's psychological warfare. They want us to suffer before we die." Through the communication system, they could hear the Keth broadcasts. War Commander Vextar spoke to the human colonies every few hours, describing how inferior humans were, how they deserved to die for claiming territory that belonged to stronger species. The Keth have claimed this system for 300 years. Vextar's voice echoed through the bunker during his latest broadcast. "Your species arrived 2 years ago and thinks you own what the strong have held for centuries. This is the arrogance of the weak." Lee Dongwu turned off the communication system. He had heard enough. "Captain," came a voice from behind him. He turned to see Youngda Sam, the colony's chief medic. She was young but had proven herself during several venom spine attacks over the past 2 years. "We have a problem." "What now?" "Food supplies. We planned for emergency rations to last 1 week, but we have 3,000 people down here, and if this siege continues..." Lee Dongwu understood. They would starve before the Keth broke through their shields. "What about the emergency protein stores?" Oh Min-jun asked. "We lost most of them when the Eastern Complex was destroyed," Young Dasom replied. "What we have left will last maybe 4 days." The bunker shook again. This time the lights went out completely before the emergency power kicked in. "Sir," Hansol called out, "I'm reading Keth energy signatures on the surface. They've landed ground troops." Lee Dongwu moved to the sensor display. Sure enough, dozens of Keth transports had landed around the colony. The aliens were setting up a base camp directly above the human bunkers. "They're not just bombarding us anymore," he realized. "They're planning to stay." Over the next few days, the situation became clear. The Keth had established a permanent base on New Incheon's surface. They brought down heavy equipment, constructed buildings, and began strip mining the planet's resources, all while the humans hid underground like animals. But the Keth had made one critical mistake. They had built their base in Venom Spine territory. Private Lim Soo-jin was on patrol in the bunker's outer tunnels when she first heard the alien screams. The tunnels connected to natural cave systems that reached the surface in several places. The caves had always been dangerous because Venom Spines used them as hunting grounds. Soo-jin crept through the darkness toward one of the surface access points. What she saw through the cave opening made her freeze. A Keth warrior lay on the ground, his scaled body convulsing. Green foam bubbled from his mouth. Next to him, 2 other Keth soldiers fired their energy weapons at something moving in the purple grass. Their shots were wild, panicked. A venom spine larger than any Soo-jin had seen before slithered between the alien soldiers. Its scales reflected their weapon fire like mirrors. One warrior tried to run, but the creature was faster. Soo-jin watched the alien fall, twitching and dying just like Sergeant Choi had died. The remaining Keth warrior activated his communication device and called for help in his own language. Soo-jin didn't understand the words, but she understood the fear in his voice. More Keth soldiers arrived within minutes, but they approached carefully. They had already learned that their shields and armor meant nothing against venom spine toxin. Soo-jin crawled back through the tunnels to report what she had seen. "They're dying up there," she told Captain Lee Dongwu. "The venom spines are killing them just like they kill us." Dr. Park looked up from her research station. "That's impossible. Their physiology is completely different from ours. The toxin shouldn't affect them the same way." "It does, though," Soo-jin insisted. "I watched 3 of them die. Same symptoms, same time frame." Lee Dongwu studied the tactical display. "How many Keth are on the surface?" "Sensors show approximately 200 soldiers plus support staff," Oh Min-jun reported. "And how many venom spine attacks have we recorded since they landed?" Oh Min-jun checked his data. 14 confirmed incidents, but the Keth are reporting casualties through their communication channels. They've lost at least 30 soldiers in 3 days. Dr. Park stood up suddenly. I need to study this. If the venom spine toxin affects Keth physiology the same way it affects humans, that changes everything. How? Lee Dongwu asked. Because we've been thinking about this all wrong. The Keth see themselves as superior because they conquered this planet. But they can't actually live here safely any more than we can. Young Dasom had been listening while she treated patients. What are you saying? I'm saying that the planet isn't rejecting humans specifically. It's rejecting everyone equally. Above them, the Keth continued their occupation, but it was becoming costly. War Commander Vextar had lost more soldiers to venom spines than to human resistance. His warriors, trained for battle against other sentient species, had no experience fighting predators that couldn't be reasoned with or intimidated. The Keth tried everything. They set up energy barriers around their camp, but venom spines could slip through small gaps. They used motion sensors and automated weapons, but the creatures were smart enough to avoid the devices. They even tried poisoning the areas around their base, but venom spines seemed immune to their chemical weapons. War Commander, one of his lieutenants reported during the daily briefing, we have lost another patrol to the serpent creatures. That brings our casualty count to 47 soldiers. Vextar's red eyes glowed with frustration. How is this possible? We have conquered dozens of worlds. We have defeated armies and fleets. But these mindless beasts, they are not mindless, sir. Our xenobiologists report that the creatures show pack intelligence. They coordinate attacks. They learn from our tactics and adapt. Then we adapt faster, Vextar growled. Double the perimeter guards. Install more detection systems. I will not be defeated by animals. But even as he gave orders, Vextar couldn't shake a disturbing thought. The humans had lived on this planet for 2 years. How had they survived when his superior warriors were dying daily? In the bunkers below, the humans were asking themselves the same question from a different angle. Look at this data, Dr. Park said, showing her research to the senior staff. According to our records, we lost an average of 1 person per month to venom spine attacks before the Keth arrived. That's 12 deaths per year among 3,000 people. And the Keth? Lee Dongwu asked. 47 deaths in 1 week among 200 soldiers. That's a death rate more than 50 times higher than ours. Oh Min-jun leaned back in his chair. Maybe we're just better at avoiding them. No, Dr. Park shook her head. I've been reviewing all our encounter reports. Humans aren't better at avoiding venom spines. If anything, we're worse. We make more noise, we smell different, we move in ways that should attract them. Then why are we surviving better? Dr. Park pulled up medical records on her screen. I think it's something else. Something we haven't considered. Young Dasom looked at the data. What am I looking at? Autopsy reports from humans who died from venom spine attacks, Dr. Park explained. Look at the time factors. Lee Dongwu studied the numbers. Most of our people survived for 15 to 20 minutes after being bitten. But Sergeant Choi died in under 5 minutes. Exactly. And from what Private Sujin observed, the Keth are dying even faster. 3 to 4 minutes maximum. What does that mean? Dr. Park turned to face them all. It means the toxin affects different species differently, and for some reason humans are the most resistant to it. Outside their underground shelter, the Keth continued to lose soldiers to creatures they couldn't understand or defeat. War Commander Vextar stared out at the purple landscape that was becoming his army's graveyard. He had come here to prove Keth superiority over weak humans. Instead, he was learning that strength meant nothing against an enemy that couldn't be intimidated. Negotiated Wu Private Lim Sujin crouched in the darkness of the cave tunnel, her stomach growling loud enough that she worried it might attract predators. The emergency rations had run out 2 days ago. 3,000 people hiding underground had emptied their food supplies faster than anyone had expected. The bunker's recycling systems could provide water, and Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun had managed to keep the air scrubbers working. But food was a different problem. There was no way to create protein and calories from nothing. Sujin was part of a small team that Captain Lee Dongwu had sent to scout the cave systems. Maybe they could find a way to reach one of the outlying supply caches that the Keth bombardment had missed. Maybe they could find edible plants in the caves. Maybe they could find something, anything, to keep 3,000 people from starving. What Sujin found instead was a venom spine. She had been exploring a side tunnel when her flashlight beam caught the reflection of scales. The creature was coiled in an alcove, probably sleeping. It was smaller than the ones that had been attacking the Keth base above, but still large enough to kill her if it woke up angry. Su-Jin raised her rifle and aimed carefully. One shot would alert any other venom spines in the area, but she didn't have a choice. The creature was blocking the only way deeper into the cave system. The energy blast took the venom spine's head off cleanly. The body thrashed for a few seconds, then went still. Su-Jin approached carefully, watching for any movement. When she was sure the creature was dead, she knelt beside it and really looked at a venom spine for the first time. It was actually beautiful, in a deadly way. The scales shifted from dark green to black depending on how the light hit them. The muscle structure underneath looked similar to the large earth snakes she had studied in basic biology. And the meat. Su-Jin's stomach growled again, louder this time. She had grown up on a frontier world before joining the colonial service. Her family had hunted for food when the supply ships were late. She knew how to field dress game animals, how to prepare meat safely, how to cook over an open fire. The question was, could humans eat venom spine meat? Dr. Park had never mentioned it during her safety briefings. But then again, Dr. Park had never been in a situation where the choice was eating alien, predator, or starving to death. Su-Jin made her decision. She used her combat knife to cut away a small section of meat from the creature's body. The flesh was pale white with dark veins running through it. It didn't smell like anything she recognized, but it didn't smell rotten either. Using her portable heater, Su-Jin cooked the meat thoroughly. If there were parasites or bacteria, heat would kill most of them. If there were toxins, well, she was probably going to die anyway if she didn't eat something soon. The cooked meat tasted like chicken, if chicken had been mixed with fish and seasoned with something metallic. It wasn't delicious, but it wasn't horrible either. Su-Jin ate the small piece and waited. 10 minutes passed. She felt fine. 20 minutes. Still fine. An hour later, Su-Jin realized she felt better than fine. The exhaustion that had been weighing her down for days was gone. Her muscles felt stronger. Even her vision seemed sharper in the dim light of the caves. She cut off more meat and cooked it. Then she carefully wrapped the rest of the venom spine in her emergency blanket and began the long crawl back to the bunker. Dr. Park So-min stared at the piece of cooked venom spine meat that Su-Jin had brought her. "You ate this?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you feel normal?" "Better than normal, actually." Su-Jin described the increased energy and improved physical condition she had experienced. Dr. Park ran every test she could with her limited equipment. Blood work, neurological responses, toxin screening. Everything came back not just normal, but improved. "This is impossible," Dr. Park muttered, studying the results for the third time. Captain Lee Dong-woo had been listening from across the medical bay. "What's impossible?" According to these readings, Su-Jin's body processed the venom spine toxin completely. Not only that, but the compounds in the meat seemed to have enhanced her metabolism and muscle efficiency. Young Da-som looked up from her own work. "Are you saying humans can eat the things that have been killing us?" "I'm saying this human can eat them. We need more data before we know if it applies to everyone." But they didn't have time for extensive testing. Food supplies were gone, and people were getting weaker by the hour. Lee Dong-woo made another command decision. "Su-Jin, can you find more of these creatures?" "Yes, sir. The caves are full of them. Then we're going hunting." Over the next 3 days, small teams led by Su-Jin ventured into the cave systems to hunt venom spines. It was dangerous work. The creatures were fast, intelligent, and extremely aggressive when cornered. But humans were desperate, and desperation made them brave. Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun rigged up better weapons for the hunting teams. Pilot An Kyung-ho, who had been grounded since the Keth destroyed the landing pad, volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Even Dr. Park joined the hunts, studying the creatures while the others killed them. The results were remarkable. Not only could humans eat venom spine meat safely, but everyone who did so experienced the same improvements that Su-Jin had reported. Increased strength, better reflexes, faster healing, improved endurance. It's like the toxin becomes beneficial once it's processed through our digestive system, Dr. Park explained to the senior staff. "I think our gut bacteria and liver enzymes are breaking down the poison and converting it into something our bodies can use." "How is that possible?" Oh Min-jun asked. "Millions of years of evolution," Dr. Park replied. "Humans evolved as scavengers and persistence hunters. We ate everything we could find, including things that would poison other animals. Our digestive systems adapted to handle toxins that would kill other species. Jung Dasom was studying her own test results. The nutritional value is incredible too. One portion of venom spine meat provides more protein and essential amino acids than a week's worth of emergency rations. Above them, the Keth were having the opposite experience. War Commander Vextar stood in his command center, reviewing the latest casualty reports. In 1 week, his force had lost 93 soldiers to venom spine attacks. The serpent creatures seemed to be getting bolder, attacking larger groups and coordinating their assaults. War Commander, his chief medical officer reported, we have identified the mechanism of the creature's toxin. It attacks the nervous system directly, causing paralysis and respiratory failure. Our physiology provides no resistance. What about protective measures? Full environmental suits prevent bites, but they limit mobility. Energy shields are ineffective because the creatures can slip through small gaps. Chemical deterrents have no effect. Vextar's lieutenant approached with more bad news. Sir, we're also detecting increased activity in the underground areas. Our sensors show movement in the cave systems beneath our position. The humans? Possibly. But there are other signatures we can't identify. The creatures may be using the caves as breeding grounds. Vextar turned to study the tactical display. His mighty invasion force was being decimated by animals. Animals that the inferior humans had somehow learned to live with. Sir, the medical officer continued, there is something else. We have recovered human remains from some of the older caves, but the interesting thing is how they died. Explain. The humans who died in these caves show signs of venom spine toxin, but they survived much longer than our soldiers do. Some lived for 20 minutes or more after being bitten. Vextar's red eyes glowed brighter. Are you suggesting that humans are more resistant to the toxin than we are? The evidence supports that conclusion, sir. This information disturbed Vextar more than the casualty reports. The Keth believed that reptilian species were superior to mammals in every way. Stronger, faster, more intelligent, more resistant to toxins and diseases. But here was proof that soft-skinned, warm-blooded humans could survive in an environment that was killing his warriors. In the bunkers below, the humans were not just surviving anymore. They were thriving. Sujin led another hunting party through the caves, moving with confidence through tunnels that had once terrified the colonists. Her team had killed 6 venom spines in 2 hours, enough meat to feed 50 people for a day. Movement ahead, whispered An Kyung-ho, pointing to a side passage. The team took position as a large venom spine emerged from the shadows. This one was different from the others, bigger with more elaborate scale patterns. Sujin had learned to recognize the alpha creatures that led the packs. The battle was brief but intense. The alpha venom spine was faster and smarter than its smaller cousins, but it was still just an animal. Coordinated human tactics and superior weapons won the fight. As Sujin field-dressed the creature, she thought about the irony of their situation. The Keth had come here to prove that humans were weak. Instead, they had created conditions that proved exactly the opposite. Sujin, An Kyung-ho, called out, "Look at this." He was pointing to marks on the cave wall. Energy weapon burns. The Keth had been down here, hunting the same creatures that the humans were hunting. But there were also signs that the aliens had retreated quickly. Bloodstains dropped equipment, drag marks where wounded soldiers had been pulled away. Captain Lee Dongwoo stood in the bunker's command center, looking at reports that would have seemed impossible 3 weeks ago. His people weren't just surviving anymore, they were getting stronger every day. Current status? He asked Dr. Park So-min. All colonists are now on a steady diet of venom spine meat. Physical performance has improved across the board. Strength is up an average of 30%. Reflexes are 25% faster. Even our healing rate has increased. Dr. Park set down her data pad. Captain, we're becoming something different than we were when we arrived here. Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun looked up from his tactical display. The Keth are having the opposite problem. Our sensors show they've lost over half their ground forces to venom spine attacks. They're pulling back to a smaller defensive perimeter around their landing site. What about their orbital bombardment? Lee Dongwoo asked. They stopped 2 days ago. I think they're worried about damaging the mining equipment they want to steal. Corporal Kim Hansol had been monitoring Keth communications. Sir, they're reporting the attacks to their fleet commanders as unprecedented predator activity. They're requesting reinforcements. Li Dongwu studied the tactical situation. For the first time since the war began, the humans weren't losing, but they also weren't winning. They could survive underground indefinitely now that they had a reliable food source, but they couldn't retake the surface while Keth ships controlled orbit. We need to change the dynamic, he decided. It's time to take the fight to them. Jung Da-sum had been listening while she prepared medical supplies. Captain, are you suggesting we attack the Keth directly? I'm suggesting we show them something they haven't seen yet. Dr. Park, how many people can we safely send to the surface? With the physical improvements from the venom spine meat? Maybe 50. But sir, they still have advanced weapons and armor. They also have a fear of venom spines that we don't share anymore. Li Dongwu's plan was simple, but audacious. A small team of humans would emerge from the caves near the Keth base and conduct a direct assault. Not to win, but to demonstrate something that would shake the aliens' understanding of human capabilities. Private Lim Soo-jin led the assault team. Over the past weeks, she had become the colony's best venom spine hunter. Her body had adapted to the alien meat better than anyone else's. She could move through the caves in complete darkness, track the creatures by scent, and kill them with weapons or bare hands. The team that followed her included pilot An Kyung-ho, Corporal Hansel, and 20 other volunteers. All of them had been living on venom spine meat for weeks. All of them had been transformed by it. They emerged from the caves just after dawn when Keth patrols were at their most cautious. The aliens had learned that venom spines were most active during the transition between night and day. The Keth base sprawled across what had once been the colony's main plaza. Energy barriers surrounded the perimeter, and automated weapons scanned for movement. But the barriers were designed to keep out large creatures, not human-sized infiltrators. Soo-jin slipped through a gap between two barrier projectors, moving with the fluid grace that the venom spine meat had given her. Behind her, the rest of the team followed in single file. The first Keth sentry they encountered was standing guard near a supply depot. The alien warrior was massive, nearly twice Soo-jin's height, covered in natural scales that looked like armor. His energy rifle could have vaporized her with a single shot, but he never got the chance to fire. Soo-jin moved faster than the Keth warrior's reflexes could follow. Her combat knife found the gap between his neck scales before he could raise his weapon. The alien fell silently. How did you do that? Hansel whispered. Venom spine hunting, Soo-jin replied. Same techniques, bigger target. They moved deeper into the base, taking out sentries and guards with a precision that surprised even them. The venom spine meat hadn't just made them stronger. It had made them faster, more coordinated, better hunters. But their real objective wasn't to kill Keth soldiers. It was to reach the creature containment area. The aliens had been capturing venom spines for study, trying to understand how to defend against them. Dozens of the creatures were held in energy cages throughout the base. Soo-jin's team was going to set them free. The containment area was heavily guarded, but the guards were watching for attacks from outside the base, not from within. Soo-jin and her team eliminated the sentries and began deactivating the containment fields. That's when everything went wrong. A massive venom spine, larger than any Soo-jin had seen in the caves, emerged from the first cage they opened. This wasn't one of the smaller creatures they had been hunting. This was an apex predator, and it was angry. The creature attacked immediately, moving with lightning speed toward the nearest target, which happened to be An Kyung-ho. But something unexpected happened. Instead of running or trying to shoot the creature, Soo-jin stepped between it and her teammate. The venom spine stopped its attack, rearing back and studying her with intelligent eyes. Soo-jin, get back, Hansel shouted, raising his rifle. Wait, Soo-jin said quietly. She reached into her pack and pulled out a piece of cooked venom spine meat. The creature's head tracked the movement and its aggressive posture relaxed slightly. Soo-jin tossed the meat to the ground between them. The large venom spine approached cautiously, sniffed the offering, then consumed it quickly. I think it recognizes the scent, Soo-jin whispered. We smell like them now, like we're part of their ecosystem. The creature studied her for another moment, then slithered away toward the base's perimeter, apparently no longer interested in attacking. But the commotion had alerted the entire Keth base. Alarms began blaring, and armed soldiers poured out of the surrounding buildings. All teams converge on containment area, came War Commander Vextar's voice over the base's communication system. Unknown infiltrators have breached the perimeter. Sujin's team found themselves surrounded. 50 Keth warriors formed a circle around the containment area, their weapons trained on the humans. In the center of the circle, War Commander Vextar himself approached. The alien commander was even more impressive in person than he had been in the holographic communications. Nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick scales that gleamed like metal, eyes that glowed red with contained fury. "Humans," Vextar said, his voice carrying across the open area. "You emerge from your hiding places to die with honor. This is unexpected." Sujin stepped forward, her rifle lowered but ready. "We're not here to die." "Then why are you here?" Vextar demanded. "You cannot win against Keth forces. You cannot escape our perimeter. You cannot even survive on this planet without hiding. Underground like animals, that's..." When the second massive venom spine emerged from another cage that Hansol had opened, the creature was even larger than the first one, and it was not interested in peaceful interaction. It struck immediately, targeting the nearest Keth warriors. Chaos erupted in the containment area. Keth soldiers scattered, firing their weapons wildly. Energy blasts lit up the morning air. 3 warriors fell to venom spine bites in the first 30 seconds, but through all the chaos, Sujin and her team stood their ground. Hansol calmly shot a venom spine that was threatening An Kyung-ho. Sujin used her knife to wound another creature that was attacking in their direction. The other humans moved with coordinated precision, protecting each other and eliminating threats. War Commander Vextar watched in amazement as his elite warriors fled from creatures that these inferior humans were fighting effectively. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, 7 Keth soldiers were dead from venom spine toxin. 2 more creatures had been killed, and Sujin's team stood in the center of the devastation, breathing hard but unharmed. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. Sujin looked directly at the alien commander. "You want to know how we survive on this planet? You want to know why we're not afraid of creatures that kill your warriors?" She walked over to one of the dead venom spines and drew her knife. With quick, efficient movements, she field-dressed the creature, cutting away a large section of meat. Vextar and his remaining warriors watched in stunned silence as Sujin built a small fire using her portable heater. She cooked the venom spine meat thoroughly, seasoning it with spices from her pack. "We don't just survive what kills you," Sujin said, taking a large bite of the cooked meat. "We eat it." The silence that followed was absolute. 50 Keth warriors, the most feared predators in known space, stared at a small human woman calmly consuming the flesh of a creature whose toxin could kill them in minutes. War Commander Vextar's red eyes had stopped glowing. They were wide with something that might have been understanding or might have been fear. "How?" he asked quietly. Sujin swallowed another bite of meat. "Because we're not the weak species you thought we were. We're the species that turns poisons into food, predators into prey, and death worlds into homes." She offered a piece of the cooked meat to Vextar. "Want to try some?" The alien commander stared at the offering for a long moment. Then he activated his communication device. "All Keth forces," he announced. "Cease hostilities immediately. Initiate contact protocols. We need to reconsider our assessment of the human species." In the distance, Sujin could see more humans emerging from the caves. Her demonstration had worked. The war was about to change direction in a way that nobody had expected. The Keth had The communication from War Commander Vextar reached every Keth ship in the system within minutes. "All forces maintain defensive positions but cease offensive operations. Do not fire on human targets unless directly attacked." Admiral Yoon Ta-hyun received the transmission aboard his flagship as the human fleet approached New Incheon. He had expected to find a destroyed colony and dead civilians. Instead, his sensors showed Keth ships in orbit, but no active bombardment. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Captain Lee Dongwoo, and he's requesting permission to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Admiral Yoon frowned. "With the Keth? While their ships are in our system?" "Sir, the captain says the situation has changed significantly. On the surface of New Incheon, an unprecedented scene was unfolding." War Commander Vextar sat across from Captain Lee Dongwoo at an improvised table in what had been the colony's main plaza. Between them sat Dr. Park So-min, serving as translator and cultural interpreter. But the most remarkable sight was happening around them. Human colonists moved freely through the Keth base while alien warriors watched with fascination and wariness. Private Lim Soo-jin was teaching a group of young Keth soldiers how to identify different types of venom spines. Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun was showing Keth technicians how human mining equipment had been adapted for use in creature-infested areas. "Your species fascinates me," Vextar said, his red eyes studying Captain Lee. "We came here believing that strength was measured by the ability to conquer and destroy, but you have shown us a different kind of strength," Dr. Park translated carefully, making sure both sides understood each other. "The war commander is saying that Keth culture defines strength through military victory, but humans have demonstrated biological and adaptive strength that the Keth had not previously encountered." Lee Dongwoo nodded. "We never wanted this war. We just wanted to build a life here." "And you have," Vextar replied, "but not in the way we expected. You have formed a partnership with this planet's ecosystem instead of trying to dominate it." Corporal Kim Han-sol approached the table with a report. "Captain, Admiral Yoon's fleet is requesting permission to land. They want to understand the current situation before proceeding. Tell the Admiral he's welcome, but warn him about the venom spines, and make sure his people know not to shoot any Keth unless they're attacked first." Vextar's communication device activated. One of his subordinates was calling from orbit. "War Commander, the human fleet has arrived. Fleet Leader Zorth demands to know why we have not eliminated the human infestation. Tell Fleet Leader Zorth that the situation requires careful consideration," Vextar replied. "I will provide a full report within the hour." Over the next few hours, representatives from both fleets gathered on the surface. Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun found himself in the surreal position of attending a peaceful meeting, while surrounded by the same alien warriors who had been killing his people just days before. "Admiral," Dr. Park explained, "the Keth have agreed to a temporary ceasefire while we demonstrate something important to their leadership." "What kind of demonstration?" His answer came when pilot An Kyung-ho returned from the caves with the day's hunting party. They carried the bodies of 6 venom spines, enough meat to feed 100 people for several days. Admiral Yoon watched in amazement as human colonists began field dressing the creatures that had been the planet's most feared predators. Young Da-som showed Keth medical officers how human digestive systems process the toxins safely. Soo-jin gave a cooking demonstration that left alien warriors staring in disbelief. "They eat the creatures that have been killing our soldiers," Fleet Leader Zorth observed. He was Vextar's superior, a massive Keth with scars covering his scales. "This is not possible." "It is not only possible," Vextar replied, "but it gives them advantages we had not considered. They do not fear the predators because they have made them into food. They do not struggle to survive on hostile worlds because they adapt to consume what other species cannot." Admiral Yoon found himself participating in the strangest meal of his military career. Humans and Keth sat together around a large fire, sharing cooked venom spine meat and trying to understand each other's cultures. The Keth believe that reptilian species are superior to mammals, Dr. Park explained to the Admiral. But seeing humans thrive in an environment that kills Keth soldiers has challenged that belief. Fleet Leader Zorth spoke with War Commander Vextar in their own language for several minutes. Dr. Park listened carefully, then translated. "They're discussing the implications for Keth expansion policy. If humans can survive on worlds that Keth cannot safely occupy, it changes their entire strategic approach." "What do you mean?" Admiral Yoon asked. "The Keth have been avoiding certain types of planets because they're too dangerous for their physiology. But those same planets might be perfect for human colonization." Captain Lee Dong-woo had been listening to the conversation with growing understanding. "They're suggesting cooperation instead of conquest." "More than that," Dr. Park said. "They're suggesting that humans might be valuable allies specifically because we're so different from them." The real breakthrough came when Chief Engineer Oh Min-jun presented his analysis of the planet's mineral resources. Working with Keth geologists, he had identified deposits that were far richer than either species had realized. With human biological adaptations and Keth technology, Oh Min-jun explained, we could extract 10 times more resources than either of us could manage alone. Fleet Leader Zorth studied the geological data with obvious interest. The humans can work safely in areas where our soldiers die. We can provide orbital support and heavy equipment that humans cannot manufacture. It's a partnership based on our differences, rather than our similarities, Admiral Yoon realized. War Commander Vextar stood and walked to the edge of the gathering, looking out at the purple landscape where so many of his warriors had died. For 300 years, the Keth have conquered through strength alone. We believed that all valuable species were those most similar to ourselves. He turned back to face the mixed group of humans and aliens. But strength comes in forms we had not imagined. The ability to adapt, to consume poison and make it nutrition, to thrive in environments that defeat advanced technology. These are strengths we do not possess. Sujin approached the alien commander with a plate of freshly cooked venom spine meat. Would you like to try it now? We can prepare it in a way that might be safe for Keth physiology. Vextar looked at the offered food for a long moment. Then he took a small piece and examined it carefully. If I die from this, it will be an honorable death. He ate the meat slowly while both species watched nervously. Minutes passed. Vextar remained standing, healthy and increasingly amazed. The taste is acceptable, he announced, and I feel no ill effects. Dr. Park quickly took biological readings from the alien commander. The cooking process seems to have neutralized most of the toxin. You're processing the remaining compounds differently than we do, but safely. Remarkable, Fleet Leader Zorth observed. Humans have not only learned to consume these creatures, but to prepare them safely for other species. Jung Dasom had been studying the data from Dr. Park's scanner. War Commander, the nutritional benefits you're experiencing are similar to what we see in humans, but adapted to your metabolism. This could revolutionize Keth nutrition on frontier worlds. The implications were staggering. Humans could make hostile planets habitable not just for themselves, but for their allies. 3 months later, New Incheon had become the most unusual colony in known space. Humans and Keth worked side by side in the mines, with human teams handling the dangerous underground areas while Keth technology provided orbital support and heavy equipment. Sujin had been promoted to colonial liaison and spent her days teaching mixed groups of humans and aliens how to hunt venom spines safely. The creatures had gone from being the planet's apex predators to being a managed food source that supported both species. Captain Lee Dong-woo stood in his new office, looking out at a thriving settlement where two species that had been at war were now building something unprecedented together. Status report? He asked Corporal Han Sol, who had become his chief of interspecies operations. Production is up 400% from our original projections. The Keth have shared their orbital manufacturing technology, and we've shared our biological adaptation techniques. Admiral Yoon's engineers estimate that we'll complete the planned mineral extraction 2 years ahead of schedule. Dr. Park entered with her daily research report. I've identified 12 more worlds in this system that could support similar joint colonies. All of them have dangerous ecosystems that would challenge Keth physiology, but provide opportunities for human adaptation. And the broader situation? Lee asked. The Keth Coalition has officially revised their expansion policy. Dr. Park smiled. Instead of conquering human colonies, they're requesting partnerships. Apparently, word has spread throughout their empire about humans who eat what kills other species. War Commander Vextar, now serving as Joint Colonial Administrator, entered the office with his own report. Captain Lee, Fleet Leader Zorth has